Hi, everybody. So today we're going to be going over literary device terms. These are terms that you've been using for years. You used them in middle school, or you've used them previously with me if you've had my course before. And so it's just review. We want to make sure that you have a good idea and you're remembering how to use and how to identify all of these different terms and devices before we get into reading our first big book or our first stories as we start this school year. Okay. So as you're taking notes, remember that you can pause and replay certain sections if you were confused or if I went a little bit too fast for you. So I will be going a little bit quicker through this lecture just because you have that ability to pause and replay as we go through. And you make sure you are taking notes. You're going to be using these for your practice at the end of watching the video. So if you're in English 2, if you're a sophomore, you're only going to be watching this video and then you're going to be doing your practice. If you're in English 3 or English 4, you have one more video that you need to watch before you go and complete the practice. So this should be the first one you watch before you watch the second one if you're in English 3 or English 4. Okay, so let's get started. So the first one is allusion. The easiest way to understand and to remember allusion is to almost just replace that word with reference. An allusion is where the author is referring to some other subject matter, such as a place, a historical event, or even another piece of literature in their own text as they're going through. So one example of this is Scrooge McDuck. Scrooge McDuck, the character, the Disney character himself, is one big allusion to Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. So you have the character of Scrooge, who's a miser. He hoards all his money. He doesn't share it with anybody. And so then you have the Disney character, Scrooge McDuck, who is an allusion to that Charles Dickens character himself. It's a reference to another literary piece. When authors make allusions and they make those references, it's to give deeper meaning and to give a better understanding of the plot itself or those characters as they go through it. So you have an even more examples to go through as you're trying to understand the story. So an allusion is a reference. So this other example I have here, he's more annoying than Jar Jar Binks. If I said that in a story, I'm making that allusion or I'm referring to Star Wars and the character Jar Jar Binks specifically. So allusion is reference. The next one is direct characterization. So when we're reading a book, we're being introduced to all these characters, and there's two different ways that an author can define those characters and help us understand them. So the first one is direct. This is where the character is directly described. So the author is going to say, she is a sneaky thief. There is no question about what kind of person she is or who she is. The author comes just right out and says who that person is, okay, what kind of character they are. The other kind of characterization is the total opposite. So that's indirect characterization. That's where the author helps us understand who this character is through their actions, thoughts, or their speech. So the example of direct characterization, she's a sneaky thief, I would redefine that as indirect by saying she deftly picked the man's pocket as he got on the subway and she exited. He wouldn't know he was broke until he was already home, and he would never even remember that sweet girl that swept past him off the train. So indirect characterization is preferred. So when we get into creative writing this year too, indirect characterization always reads as more interesting. It's always more descriptive, and you as a reader are able to connect with it better than direct characterization. But direct characterization can work really well too when you think that characters' traits are so large, it needs to be said. Okay, so they're a sneaky thief. Or if we're going into the character Scar in Disney, they come right out at some point and just say, he is evil, he's maniacal. And so that they're so evil, we have to just come right out and say what kind of person that character is. So you're looking for how that author is defining them either via direct characterization or indirect characterization. Okay. There we go. So the next one is conflict. So it is really the resistance that the protagonist or any of the characters go through within that story to their end game. So they have the end game of achieving a dream or defeating a person or saving somebody, and that conflict is what prevents them from having that ultimate achievement that they're going towards. And conflict is really the whole point of what we read. We want to read those main characters, those protagonists, go through and achieve something, but if they just achieve it right off the bat, it's not interesting. They have to go through all these trials and tribulations. There's multiple types of conflict, though. So we're not just having conflict with other people. So that kind of conflict would be character versus character. So when they're actually butting heads. So Batman versus the Joker. That's character versus character. It's two characters fighting against each other, and the Joker is preventing Batman from having the perfect and all justice taken care of Gotham. Okay. Then you have character versus self. So this is when the protagonist themselves is fighting with themselves in their own head. They can't come to the conclusion, they can't achieve what they want to because they're fighting within themselves. You also have character versus nature. If you've ever seen anything or read Frankenstein or anything with that, a lot of what the monster is fighting through, not only, but a lot of what he's fighting through at one point in time is nature itself. He's having to fight through a snowstorm and keep going across this mountain to get to his creator, Victor, so he can defeat him. Or in any show, whether on a movie or book, where they're on a ship, there's always some storm that pops up and prevents the ship from getting to its destination. That's your character versus nature conflict there. You have character versus society, where society isn't letting them complete that action. Batman is, again, another really great example of that, because the city of Gotham doesn't believe Batman is a superhero, and they're constantly trying to catch him and arrest him and portray him as a villain. So society itself is a conflict for him in achieving his goal. Then you also have character versus supernatural. The show Supernatural is a perfect example of this. Your protagonists are fighting against ghosts, they're fighting against fate. So in Hercules, fate itself is a conflict for him because he can't fight what he was meant to do in his life. So you're fighting something that is otherworldly within that conflict. So the example I have at the bottom is Harry Potter has a character versus character conflict. Obviously, he's conflicting with Voldemort, and trying to defeat him. But he also has this character versus self conflict where he's constantly doubting himself and unsure if he's going to be able to achieve that end goal of defeating Voldemort. So he brings himself down in that conflict versus himself through that. We also have connotation. Okay. So connotation are the associations that we make with words. So it's not the dictionary definition, it's the extra definition or the extra meaning that we give words with our emotions and feelings. So the literal definition of heart is an organ that pumps blood. Okay. That's not the connotative meaning, though. The connotative meaning of heart is going to be something like love and friendship and relationships. So when I say I heart something, I don't organ that pumps blood coffee. I heart coffee because I love coffee. So you have that connotative meaning. It's that extra meaning, that extra layer of definition that we give a word that is associated with the feelings and emotions or experiences we have with it. Okay. So then denotation is that exact opposite. It is the literal definition of the word. So the organ that pumps blood is the denotative definition of heart. And then our connotative definition would be love or relationships or friendship. Foil characters. So a foil is a character in a story who contrasts with the main character to highlight their attributes. So these are two characters who are exact opposite of each other. And because they are so different, we better understand their strengths or their weaknesses because of those differences. So the Joker is Batman's foil. The Joker is so evil and so focused on just destroying life. In that exact opposite, we see how good Batman is and in how focused he is to create order within life and order within Gotham. So they are foils to each other because in their opposition, we understand them better. Foreshadowing, this is one that you guys are always really good about identifying, and it's what makes reading and watching movies and TV shows interesting. You want to have that moment where you think you know what's going to happen. You have that slight hint, and they give you those moments where you think you know what's going to happen. And sometimes they break it, but a lot of the time in foreshadowing, it is true, and those little hints they give us do actually end up happening. So it refers exactly to the uses of words and phrases that set the stage. They set up the story to unfold. So if in a book I say the evening was still, suddenly a cool breeze started blowing and made a windy night, we know it's foreshadowing a thunderstorm or foreshadowing some type of stormy events that are going to happen. And we know that something cool or dangerous might be happening because the cool breeze starts after a really still evening and it goes through. Hyperbole. You guys use these all the time. they're fun. They make reading interesting. They make writing interesting. It's where you exaggerate and overemphasize the statement that it is not the literal meaning, but it helps you to show that larger than life effect that you're trying to get across. So, and I've heard plenty of you say this, I died of embarrassment. Okay. You did not literally die. You're not in the grave from embarrassment. But the embarrassment was so massive, you felt as if you could literally die. So you were over exaggerating what happened to you with that embarrassment to show how extreme it was. Okay, so you're making a hyperbole. Irony. This one can be difficult to get across sometimes and to truly understand. It doesn't help if any of you know the Alanis Morissette song. She defined it incorrectly. So the use of irony is literally where you are playing with words and the meaning that is implied by that sentence or that word is different from the literal meaning. Okay. So it's often used in stark contrast to each other. Okay. So trying to think. So a bad example of that would be rain on your wedding day. Okay. The term wedding day does not itself mean a sunny day. So it is not ironic to have rain on your wedding day. It sucks, but it's not ironic. Okay. But when I say something so, oh, what fine luck I have. Okay. The literal meaning of fine would mean great luck, but I don't mean it as what fine luck I have. I'm ticked off and I have crappy luck. So what I have literally written in oh, what fine luck I have is ironic because I don't literally mean fine. I mean the exact opposite of bad luck within there. So when you're looking for ironic examples, you're looking for phrases, words, sentences that are different from the literal meaning given. Okay. Usually said with sarcasm. So you're looking for sarcasm a lot of the time. Juxtaposition. So for the English 3 and English 4 students, this should be familiar. We went over it last year. For English 2, this is the new word for you. Okay. So juxtaposition is similar to foil, but it doesn't have to do with characters specifically. It's when you have two total opposite concepts, places, ideas, or themes that are parallel to each other. They're happening simultaneously or they're happening next to each other within what you're reading or what you're watching. Okay. And because they are so total in opposition, we see the exaggeration or we see a larger theme being created or suspense being created because they are so opposite. So one that's said all the time is that all is fair in love and war. Love and war are two totally opposite things, and we create a stronger theme and we create a stronger message that we're giving with our piece and what we're saying when we say all is fair in love and war. Okay, so we're highlighting more so of what is fair with love and war. Or if we're connecting to Great Gatsby, when the dogs are excited about literary devices. When Gatsby goes from the old money dinner that he has with Tom and Daisy towards the beginning of the book, and then right after that, he travels through the Valley of Ashes and meets Myrtle. We have those two total opposite settings. You have this old money setting with opulence and lots of money and servants there for you, and everything is taken care of. And then you immediately go into, sorry, I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, sorry, back at it. They're just really excited about learning about literary devices. You go through those Valley of Ashes, you have that then this dark, dank, dirty place where nobody is happy, and that is in total opposition to the old money party he just attended. So you can see that via juxtaposition, it adds greater detail to what they're doing. Okay, so the next term is going to be mood. So this is the feeling created in the reader itself. So this is the feeling that you have while you're reading. Now, the tone that the author creates and the author puts in there helps you to feel this mood, but the mood is what you are feeling from the tone and the atmosphere of the story. So in The Raven, so these first 3 little lines here is from The Raven. It says, "Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wish the morrow." So the mood that's created from that is foreboding, it's fearful, we're uneasy, we're really anxiety ridden, we're afraid of what's going to happen in this bleak December. So we've created that mood from the tone that the author has set up. Motif. We want to make sure you understand the difference between motif and theme. We're going to do motif first. So motif is any element, subject, idea, or concept that is just repeated over and over again in a body of literature or in a film or anything you're reading in that media. So motif, you've seen it over and over again within there, and it's no more than one or two ideas or one or two words as you see it. So in the film Mean Girls, you see these characters being jealous of each other over and over again throughout the whole film. So jealousy would be a really good motif for Mean Girls, okay? Or in The Great Gatsby, over and over again, we see dreams. We have Gatsby's dreams, Daisy's dreams, Tom's dream of wanting to have two women at the same time, having his wife and his mistress. Daisy wanting to run off with Gatsby, but also wanting to have money. You have everybody's dreams colliding throughout that story, and we see that over and over again with all of our characters. So dreams would be a good motif for The Great Gatsby. So your motif are these concepts that are repeated throughout that help you to develop your theme, and they help you to understand the tone of what you're reading, but it's not a theme. Your theme then is the full statement. It's those lessons we take away. It's those ideas, those patterns that we can connect to as human beings that are connected to those motifs. So when we're reading and we're watching The Mean Girls, if our motif is fitting in, like I said earlier, people should be happy with who they are and not change to fit in then. So you want to take your motif, your main idea that you see repeated over and over again in a chapter or within that whole story, and then you expand that into a full statement to have your theme. So your theme are those lessons, it's those takeaways that we learn from what we are reading, okay? And with a theme, it has to be that full statement. It can't just be jealousy, and it can't just be fitting in, because then that would be a motif. So then I expand saying fitting in is motif by saying people should be happy with who they are and not change to fit in is now my full theme. Your themes also have to be applied to anybody and everybody. So I can't just say that Myrtle's dream is to escape her life. That's not a theme, it's a statement and it's real. So in The Great Gatsby, Myrtle is wanting to escape her life all the time. But we can't apply that to everybody because it's just about Myrtle. But if we say the theme is that people are always wanting to escape their realities and move away, then yes, that's a theme because now everybody can connect to it. And you can support it with more than just one character. You can support it with multiple characters in what you're reading. So a theme as well, not only just being repeated, you should be able to support it through multiple different ways in what you're reading. If you can only find one example in the text to support your theme, it's not a good theme. Okay? You want to have those multiple examples to support it. Symbols, and we use these all the time. We use them not only in what we read and what we watch, we also use them in everyday life. So when you are proposed to or when you get married, you wear a ring to symbolize that you are married and that you were taken and you're no longer single. When you wear or you're given a heart necklace from a parent or a grandparent as a gift, it shows that they love you and they're wanting to show that love and affection for you. So we use symbols all the time. And so it's where you're giving some type of image or a word or a setting or something, and it's representing multiple aspects. Okay. So my example here, we're going to go back to a thunderstorm. When we see a thunderstorm in a film, it isn't just rain is happening, but it also can symbolize this unrest, or there's a fight coming on, or there's a sense of terror happening. So a symbol is where you have, it could be a character, it can be a setting, it can be just an object or something, or even a song can be a symbol in itself. But whatever that object or action is, represents multiple things than just its initial meaning and what it is. Okay, so you would have layers. So if we're thinking Shrek here, layers, Onion Boy, your symbol should have multiple layers and what it's meaning than just its initial reaction that you have to it. Personification, we see this a lot in children's books, and it also a lot in mythology when we're going to be getting into those too. It's when you have something that is typically not human given human traits. So animals are given human traits, objects are given human traits. So if I say the warm and comforting fire eased her worries, a fire cannot literally come over and pat my back and ease my worries, but I personify this fire by saying that it is warming and comforting to me and in easing my worries. Okay, so you're giving something that does not have human traits, human traits. If I were to say, though, that the fire is warm and comforting, that's not personification. Okay, you're describing it and giving descriptors, but you have to actually make that object act within those human traits. Tone. So this is where we're connecting back that to moods. We talked about with mood, you have to use the author's tone to help you understand the mood. Okay, but the mood itself is what you're feeling. Tone is what the author puts into the story and is wanting you to see and is wanting you to feel, and it is their choice of what goes into it. Mood can change depending on how a reader interacts with it. Tone cannot change. Tone is what the author puts into it. So it's portraying different emotions or attitudes. It's really helpful when you're looking for a tone. What is the attitude that the author is taking towards a specific subject matter or towards a character or towards an event? Okay, so a tone could be solemn or grave, critical, witty, wry, humorous, negative, but what is that attitude that they're taking towards that subject? So in The Great Gatsby, our author Fitzgerald, he takes a very critical and negative attitude towards the American dream. And that's the tone that he sets up as we start connecting to it ourselves and then creating our moods. So when you're looking for a tone, think about what attitude is the author giving to the piece, okay? So now it's time to practice. So if you're in English 3 or English 4, I want you to click out of this video and then go into your archetype video. You're going to watch that one before you go into your actual practice. If you're in English 2, it's time for you to actually go through and do the practice. So log on to Schoology, go into today's folder, and you're going to see all of the instructions for your practice, and you need to email me with any questions. So have a wonderful day, guys.